Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pull Up Trey podcast, the podcast wherein Trey pulls up. And now he's here. We've been on a 3-week hiatus.
Yeah.
We've very big things happening in your
Uh,
life. And I guess just do you want to tell the people you teased it at the end of the last podcast?
I did. As a part of getting older and hitting the ripe old age of 30, I just thought it was best to lock it down, and I got engaged. Just super
Woo, woo,
super
woo, woo, woo.
super cool. Such like a crazy experience because you like think of it and like you have a plan for so long, and like during that day everything was going awry. I had to delay the amount of time that it took to get everything set up, so I was just delaying time. I'm asking my fiance, do you want to just go bike riding through the island, because we're in Turks and Caicos for
Yeah.
like 10 days or give or take. And she was like, no, I don't want to go bike riding. I was like, it would really mean a lot to me. So we go bike riding through all the island. The island's like 20 minutes there and back, pretty much. But there's a hill. We like 10 minutes in, and we are climbing up the hill. The person that's setting up all the decorations, they're like, "I need you to stall till 7:50." That's when the sunset is. So I'm on the bike in one hand, trying to help them coordinate everything. It was just crazy. I'm talking to her about, how most people like a certain player matches their age for their year. I'm like, it's your Yao Ming year? just just randomly. Yao Ming doesn't even wear 29. I'm just like saying randomness to just pass by the time, but it was amazing. I gotta plan a wedding, and I was saving this for the pod for you in particular.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, Samson Folk, will you be in my wedding? Will you be one of my groomsmen?
Of course. I'm
Oh,
honored.
of
For the
course.
listeners, this isn't a bit. You're actually, of course, of
Yeah.
course. I'll be there every step of every which way you need. Dude,
All right.
I'm honored. Thank you.
No problem, brother.
Well, now we got to debate. For this was the return episode. It's what we've been teasing for what, 2 months? It's
Mhm.
not even it's not even like top of mind. These guys aren't necessarily like neck to neck, but we've contrived some sort of Gradey versus Jacoby debate,
Right.
and we're bringing it to heel right now. We're gonna talk about these guys. This is gonna function as like a preview because you and I will preview a couple guys, me and Lewis, S and I,
Mhm.
and we're gonna talk about guys. 3 minutes
Yeah.
in, we're ready to talk basketball. If ever you were going to like, comment, subscribe, now would be the time. We're heading into what I'm guessing will be the biggest year of the podcast. We will have a bunch of news about it, all that good stuff. Trey, you are taking the side of Jacoby. I'm taking the side of Gradey. The last time we did a debate forum
Yeah.
type thing was around Fred VanVleet's contract, and
Yeah.
neither of us were remotely correct. We weren't close. We weren't close to it. Uh, we're going to start with Jacoby Walter. How this is going to work, listener, is that it's going to be like we're talking about Jacoby for however long. We talk about Gradey for however long. It's not going to be point by point, going back at each other. Jacoby Walter, your opening statements on the man. What's the pitch here?
I think since the Raptors have made their change in terms of like coaching, their philosophy and everything that they've done has been trying to fit how the league is moving and progressing. They've moved away from isolation basketball. They've moved away from this aggressive style of defense that they had for such a long period of time, where they trapped and blitzed everything. They really want guys who are strong at the point of attack, guys that can make quick decisions on and off the ball, and provide help with shooting. Jacoby Walter fits every single sentiment of that. And looking at the playoffs through Indiana, OKC, every team that's had success, they've had a two guard that fits all of those attributes. A guy that can hold at the point of attack, because that allows your point guard to not necessarily be the strongest defender.
Mm-hmm.
That's allowed Tyrese Halliburton to be in a very strong defense and be able to stay for longer periods of time. Shea Alexander is a pretty good defender, but Lou Dort takes the brunt of that responsibility for the most part. The Raptors are severely lacking a two guard that can take on the point of attack, that can make Emmanuel Quickly's work significantly easier and focus on what he does best, which is shooting. I think at that spot you're not looking for necessarily a home run. You're looking for guys that you can foresee being within a playoff series. And Jacoby's a guy who can hit spot up threes. His catch and shoot shooting was at 37% this year. His pull up twos were at 44% this year as well. So you have a guy that can attack closeouts and make good decisions. He moves off the ball. He's a really good cutter, and his defense, I think, is one of the shining points of him as an actual player. His isolation defense is among the top of the league, and you see that in the lineups that he's been inserted in. Those lineups are very good defensively and map up well offensively. Is why I think he should be their starter this year at shooting guard. Where I see the points where it's tougher for me to imagine Gradey usurping him or Gradey having a longer period of time. There isn't proof of an archetype like this in today's current situation of the NBA, being able to log tons of minutes. Aaron Wiggins, Grady, I think is superior talent to him, but a guy that really shot the ball. OKC needed his shooting, but he couldn't stay on the floor because of his defense, and it just was not tenable. Teams will pick you apart. They'll continue to exploit mismatches, and you can't have that on the floor. You see guys like Jalen Brunson even though he's a star and it controls the ball, have a difficult time being in good defenses because of this. Darius Garland, all-star level player, all NBA player. It's sometimes in the playoffs not very tenable with him and Donovan Mitchell in the exact same lineups. And those are guys that dominate the ball, who are stars offensively. So for me, it's tough to imagine, unless you look at like Klay Thompson, who was good defensively in his prime, seeing a player
all
all
defense in his
defense. That
prime.
is true. Seeing a player who isn't necessarily going to dominate the ball and warrant this offensive upside, logging tons of minutes and being within your rotation.
Jacoby, to bolster your points here, Jacoby, the archetype of what he is. The NBA is trending that way. The Raptors are trending that way. And their roster beckons in the night, the curling hand to say, like, that's the guy we need. And to like the stats you bring up, it's like 96th percentile in isolation defense per synergy. Now, some of the other guys on the floor matter for that, but as far as like the lineup he was in most often, as you alluded to with Ochai, RJ, Scotty, and Yak, where Scotty's operating as the nominal point guard, they were good, like passable to good offensively, but they were soul crushing defensively because they had so many different guys they could throw at. And it's also RJ exists in that too.
Yeah.
They're already, because they're so strong in other places, if a guy isn't necessarily a high level defender, they're papering over it too. Ochai, I think, fits in there as well. Jacoby has so much utility in that sense. And also, the 37% catch and shoot 3-point numbers, that is sustaining what we talked about last year to start the year. It was like, why is he shooting 20% on open threes the first like 2 months into the season?
Yeah.
What's happening here? It's a weird little thing. It wouldn't surprise me if we're looking at like a 40% catch and shoot 3-point shooter. Now, when we get to talk about like expanding it out and then getting to the other part of the NBA, which is that role players have to do more than ever now, that's the really interesting aspect of the Gradey Jacoby. But the defense and the just fitting a role, it's not close.
Yeah.
The Caitlin episode will be out this Saturday for listeners, and she likes Gradey better, of course, but she also said if Gradey doesn't do X or Y, Jacoby is right there. Like that's kind of his presence is he's not the lottery pick. He's not the great hope at the position. Gradey, he popped off to start year 2 and then cratered. Jacoby was pretty consistent throughout his minutes, especially in what he brought to the floor. This isn't supposed to be his job in year 2.
Yeah.
And yet he's a looming threat to that. And that speaks to one, Gradey disappointing defensively, certainly, and not shooting the ball quite as well as we might expect, but also just Jacoby doing a really good job putting himself in that place. This is also a stat that will come up on Caitlin's podcast, the podcast with Caitlin, but it applies to both players. Jacoby and Gradey are both top 10 in the NBA in average speed they play at. Gradey was obviously one of the most well-traveled players in the NBA. That's a little bit different than Jacoby, but they both play at frenetic pace, which for Jacoby, a lot of it is that getting quick up the floor to go apply ball pressure, closeouts on the defensive end, cutting on the offensive end, flying off of stuff. And Gradey, it's a bit more in the offensive direction, a bit less in the defensive direction. Does a high speed player, does that match your eye test for Jacoby in particular?
Yeah, like he's someone like that gets after it, especially when you see that defensively, and like he has constant movement on and off the ball. You see that with Grady too, like Darko, because they just struggle so much with dribbling the
Mm-hmm.
ball, like demanded so much from their wings and running off of actions and trying to generate space so they can get shots off because it was so difficult. I think it's just like with him, it's easy to plug him in and not change anything that you're doing. Like with someone like Grady, you're gonna have to change the way that you play defense because the Raptors want to be a high pickup point team that gets after the ball and gets you deep into the shot clock. You can't do that in a Emmanuel Quickly Grady Dick backcourt. That just doesn't seem.
Or at the very least, you'll be giving something up. Like if,
Yes.
but again, Caitlin and I will talk about this, but when you move the ball out of one guy's hands, you still want to be able to apply pressure. If let's say Emmanuel's a superhero next year
Yeah,
and he
it
starts
changes a
taking
lot.
it on and he's like, hell yeah, I'm going to apply pressure. That helps Grady, yes, but that still doesn't satisfy necessarily the Raptors' defensive scheme if Grady's on the floor because you don't want Grady all the way up the floor.
Hmm.
And if you do, then you don't want to win.
Yeah, and you've seen some teams like mitigate this if you have like a bigger wing that can shoot. You see Duncan Robinson sometimes plays the opposing four and can hold his own enough with Bam Adebayo. But even that, you're still giving up something. And Grady hasn't shown that he has a requisite strength or body to play larger players. Like in the truest sense, like he is a guard.
Yep.
And that makes it really hard. He has to hit a high level of offensive ability to warrant tons all the attention and schematic differences that you would have to create in order for him to play tons of minutes. And
Yeah.
you're seeing that across the NBA, teams are shying away from that player because it's more difficult and you much rather have right now it's kind of a war of attrition. You need 10 guys that can fit a role that can operate and you don't necessarily need the LeBron James that you did probably 10 years ago. It's just a matter of having guys who are base hits and like that's Jacoby in like the truest sense.
Yeah. And I guess to keep it on Jacoby, because we will get into the nitty gritty of, I will give what I hope is a compelling case on
Mhm.
Grady's behalf. Um, Keeping it with Jacoby, 37% catch and shoot 3 point, expecting it to be there or a little bit better, I think makes sense. I
Yeah.
think it's perfectly acceptable from an analyst point of view to just accept that as baseline. If it gets worse, then like I guess he's just not a shooter. Damn. But why even entertain that? The 44% on his pull-up mid-ranges, a lot of those are the short mid-ranges. He can make it fading either way, fading back, right, left. He can do it with forward momentum. He's pretty dynamic as far as like, and he can do it off of a pivot, hang, pump, get to a spot. He draws a lot of free throws. When it comes to like dynamism, which is, part of the Baylor tape, and he's only 1 year out of Baylor. Like it still matters.
Yeah.
I'll say to this point, Jacoby's lack of blow by ability, the sheer lack of handle, which again, year one to year two, maybe this goes crazy as soon as when I'm in training camp, maybe it pops the hell off in Calgary, right?
Mhm.
But what is your sell on the, I guess, upper limit of Jacoby elevating outside of just being like good in this archetype they need to being a guy who exceeds expectations elsewhere?
Yeah. I think summer league obviously was like disappointing because you wanted to see some of that step and just like the ball handling isn't there for him to create anything outside of attacking closeouts. Why I still am optimistic of him developing other skills is another trait that's super important in the playoffs, like willingness to face physicality. Because the playoffs, the physicality jumps up so much higher, and you see that defensively, and you also see that offensively with Jacoby. He's a guy that draws tons of fouls because he has the willingness to get to the rim and the willingness take on contact. It's been the same way since Baylor. With the Raptors having more also just dribble creation now with Brandon Ingram and Scotty alongside, the opportunities will be easier as well. The Raptors just aren't facing heavy rotation because they aren't getting into the paint significantly. So you aren't facing the super hard closeouts that you're facing across the board. And so he just in turn of being around better players, he's going to have much easier looks, be able to get downhill, and isn't going to necessarily even be asked to be the dribble ball handler he needs to be, because his baseline skills are just so valuable to what they need and what they do. So even if he doesn't develop into Derek White, who can operate as a second side ball handler, if he hits his threes at a decent clip and he becomes better at the rim, finishing outside of just getting to the line, it's a starting NBA guard, one that can play in the playoffs for you.
He it just it would require so much on the development side of things for
Yeah.
him to pop off that way. But the foggy idea of it is already there, which means
Mhm.
you get to dream on it. You know, Derek White, if he ended up anywhere close to that, this is one of the best. Then it immediately goes in the same bucket of like, oh, we picked OG in the latter half of the
Yeah.
first round. We picked Pascal in the latter half of the first round. It would immediately go in that bucket because Derek White is good as hell. And I would
Mhm.
urge that they don't trade him before, like, don't give up on him too early, would
Yeah.
be. And for other teams, don't pick Thaddeus Young over the Derek White version of of Jacoby Walter. The creation, I just need to see more of it.
Yeah.
I don't believe in it a lick, but that doesn't mean things won't happen
Yeah.
because the great winner of NBA games is unseen development. You look at the guys who rank top in the league, the three best players, look at where they were drafted. There's one lottery pick, and I think there's a
Yeah.
consensus top three right now. And it's because of what they added once they got to the league. And it's because, yes, things maintained. It was also because just things matured and developed, and you just couldn't really see it coming. Like Giannis,
Yeah.
you could have the foggy idea, sure, but like, come on, this,
Yeah.
that's you'd be an asinine. Jokic, come on, and then Shea, I was very high on Shea. By the end of year two, I was saying, you know, on bouncing around episodes with Evan, I was saying like, I think this guy could definitely be like in the getting MVP votes someday. And then by the next year, I was saying he could be MVP. I was really early,
Yeah.
but I was definitely not early enough to be like to draft him and be like, I see an MVP in the. He's just players make themselves once they get to the NBA. When they're grown
Yeah.
adults and get to work on their game, I will say, point in your favor. Jacoby really gives a shit, works hard, puts on weight, likes it, is an aggressive player overall, and isn't like there's no scared money don't make money aspect to him.
Yeah.
All of that. Now there's of course conversations about work ethic that always pop around players, whatever. All that points one way. I haven't heard anything good or bad from trainers, etc. But he profiles as like a very intriguing and fun player.
Yeah.
Do you
And
want to talk about? Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say you saw that in summer. That was one of the biggest things. You with the one of the good things about seeing them and being up close was just seeing the intensity that they had and like camaraderie that they also had together. Like both Jacoby and Jamal were sort of just like the vocal leaders on the team, and the way that they play like emphasize that. And a guy that really gives a shit is going to put that type of effort. The way that the Raptors play is extremely hard. They don't offer a lot of help when you're picking up the opposing ball handler. You like saw that even this year. He died on tons of screens because there wasn't necessarily Darker wasn't giving them tons of help, and he still got after it every single play. There was times where you're saying, why is he guarding Jalen Brunson? But I think that bodes well for what you want to see this year, because he will likely be tasked of guarding the best guard on for a lot of teams most nights.
So there's another guy who gives a lot of himself and gives a shit. And the biggest difference between these two players is I think Gradey has displayed at times kind of like not otherworldly shooting talent, but extremely high level shooting talent, um, extremely high level secondary skills, and just like he operates really well out of a triple threat. He can make, skip passes with both hands. There's a lot there if he were the level of shooter that you hope he becomes. Jacoby, on the other hand, really he responds better to things body wise. He's able to hold up against strength better. His movement is stronger, especially on the defensive end. He doesn't become a turnstile. He can stick with guys. When it comes to like effort and strength, getting you somewhere as a player who accomplishes things, Jacoby has shown more there.
Yep.
And I'll make the case for why I think Gradey can overcome that. But Gradey, the pitch for him immediately is skill based. He is a 100% a skill based player. He is larger than the average two guard. He is languid and he is very coordinated when he's doing things with the basketball. He has shown elite touch. He has a toolkit of way more moves than we see. Like there are guys like Buddy Hield and Malik Beasley who are these great shooters. They have like half of the skill set that Gradey has, and Gradey's 21. But Gradey hasn't proven that he can be a heat pump like they can, so it doesn't matter. The first thing for Gradey Dick is to shoot the hell out of the basketball.
The piss.
The piss out of it. There is no world where, unless he's only a movement shooter who only takes really difficult shots, and the Raptors just keep saying, you got to be the guy who takes everything difficult, which factored into his percentages last year. But 38% on catch and shoot threes, it's not good enough. Like if RJ has that year, if Scotty has that year, you doff the cap. You say, I like that. Gradey, go north of 40. Like on it can't be anything less if he wants to play the type of basketball that he wants to, if he wants to get paid the way he wants to, if the Raptors want to succeed and have that include him, it has to go north of 40. With Brandon Ingram coming in and with the restructuring of the offense to some degree, and the fact that Brandon creates so many of these looks, Gradey, you just talked about at the front end, the hellish life of guards on good teams playing against other guys. Gradey was facing those guys all the time. Early when the schedule was toughest, that's who Gradey was going up against. He was top 5 in miles traveled at that point. He was number 1 in off-ball screens used. He was elevated to the number 2 scoring option, and he did pretty well, and he kept it up. And then the gas tank hit empty, and he hit the floor. Brandon Ingram and the restructured offense, to some degree, should allow for him to take on less usage and to provide more of the wholesale version of his game, which is not just being a guy who shoots it every time he gets it, because he's a guy who has definitely looked off way more passing opportunities because the offense is asking him to be a shooter. And like, this is the advantage the offense is trying to give you. Take that advantage. He will have more opportunities, I suspect, to probe, to be a passer, to be a guy who progresses offense outside of just whether his shot goes in or not. And I think his holistic impact on the offense, it should be incredibly good. There's no doubt currently that Jacoby doesn't sniff the level of gravity that Gradey has. Gradey is pulling guys 27 feet out, and he does it, deep in the corner, above the break, wherever. You can position him and you can manipulate defenses using him. But the punch still has to be there. Thoughts going back your way? You can be positive on him too. You can give me a little. I know you like. I know there's a little you white boy over there. You know what I
mean? I think Gradey has the chance to be the third best offensive player like on this team any given night, if not for the whole season, just because like the intrinsic value that he has, like just like he pointed out, like with his gravity and shooting ability, the Raptors are going to need shooting at like a premium, just because most of their high usage guys are pretty inconsistent. Inconsistent is probably generous, to be honest. Aren't good shooters for the most part. And Gradey, especially with his movement, like Darko used him significantly to move along the wing, just because that was the only way that defenses moved at all, because they weren't getting to the rim like through dribble creation. Gradey, one of the things that really popped out in Kansas is that he isn't just the typical shooter that is shoot, close out. That's how I play. He's able to be a second side playmaker. He's able to attack with in triple threat and be a willing driver and take on contact and physicality across the board. Like he profiles more as a scorer than a necessary shooter.
Yeah.
And he may be a guy that if the defense warrants, his defense is good enough to stay in lineups, that you can throw second side and run actions for and play through, which is super important, because in the playoffs, like, getting to the rim is super tough. You need shot making. You need guys that can get to spots and potentially hit mid range jumpers, offer gravity for other people as well, just because the area of space that the average player is dealing with during the playoffs is just so tight. So you need players that draw additional attention. And most teams don't have a player as unique as him that can do all of those things from a role player. And if you have that next to a star, it creates tons of problems for defenses. It's why what the Raptors offensively, when he's not on the floor, is worse. Just typically because of his skill set. He has the chance of being a guy that, whether that's six man, whether that's their starter, that becomes a guy that closes all of your games because of the actions that he can put you through, whether that's actions with him and Brandon Ingram, where either or are the screener. It just puts so much pressure on the defense, where Jacoby does not. He is predicated on the Raptors stars being stars. Gradey is a guy that could be a potential player that lifts up the stars with him. The Raptors don't have many players. They're hoping Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes are who they are.
So this is
But
this
you're
is a
hoping that
great point.
Gradey punches up higher.
Yep. This is a great point. You tee it up perfectly, and we can actually go back and include the Aaron Wiggins perspective, because it's completely true that as we understand the NBA right now, where it has trended to, Jacoby makes so much sense.
Yep.
There's always a bounce back effect to some degree.
Mhm.
And if Gradey doesn't shoot it well, then his other skills don't matter really, and the defense will be an eyesore, and it just won't matter. He has to shoot it. But if we assume he shoots the basketball, then we can start and look at the way that defenses are responding in the future. And we've seen glimpses of it, flattening things out, not caring about what the screen gives, and sometimes leaving stars on their own and just keeping things there. It doesn't have to be overloaded. And even if it does, it's based on gap help that won't give up a three-pointer, but instead will force further decision making from whoever's on the catch. You mentioned Aaron Wiggins, who is definitely a you're just much worse defensively with him instead of one of J Dub, Dort, or Caruso.
Yeah.
However, Wiggins had 3 really big games in the finals when he got run because the Pacers were doing such a good job of nullifying and cheating off of like Dort and cheating off of Caruso. So when Wiggins came in, his ability not only to be an open shot maker, but a guy who can hit a step back 3 and progress the read afterwards, was able to break the Pacers defense repeatedly and create larger advantages. It didn't happen every game. And Caruso had a game or two where he popped off too. But that's the way I see Gradey, is that in defenses that are constantly exhibiting in this bend, don't break type of play style, you have to be able to hit shots over it, one. You have to be able to be the third guy who breaks the chain rather than one or two. I mean, we looked at the beautiful game Spurs or LeBron, that finals is like the year before. LeBron is dissecting, the Spurs with the skip pass. And then when they sit on the skip pass, he has to shoot over the top. And the Spurs the next year are dissecting the Heat's amorphous defense by, like, instead of just doing the one skip past the corner, it has to be a skip pass, a hot ball, handoff going uphill to somebody, and then a screen on the opposite side of the court to move guys around.
Yeah.
And that's only because every guy on the roster at that point, whether it's Diao, Parker, whomever, is able to do something with the ball. And
Mhm.
Gradey, I think, represents a guy who will always be able to do something with the ball, which will always be important when it gets down to the nitty-gritty. And the upper end of his potential, I think, is really high. I think, yes, he was a bad finisher last year. I think he can be at the very least average. Maybe I'm crazy for saying this, but I think he can be at the very least average,
Yeah.
especially for the types of shots he takes. And for his size, I think he can be relative to role and size, like above average as a finisher. I believe in the touch. Decision making, we'll see what happens, what types of shots he decides to take. He has a little bit of that Kyrie in him, and he's not Kyrie. You know what I mean?
Please.
He's definitely not. And that's the worst, actually, is when you have that superstar in you, but you're not that superstar. Tough scene, man.
Yeah, that's tough.
We've seen it on our own basketball courts before too. It's a tough look.
Yeah.
It's a tough look. That's the pitch. And I also just think that the Raptors and the NBA at large is going to swing back to some degree to start appreciating the innings eating offensive players. Like, of course, the NBA is figuring things out, and we get this surge of efficiency towards like everyone looks at true shooting percentage. If you're not here, it's not valuable. We're going to find guys who are around league average true shooting who just do so much and grease wheels everywhere that they have like an exorbitant effect on positive offense, despite not being the one who does it themselves. Matt Chapman, third base. All of a sudden, Bo Bichette's his numbers are better defensively, but Matt Chapman's goes down because they don't know that he's positively affecting the other. These types of scorers, like we hope Gradey becomes, that is the pitch. So the defense is going to be there's never going to be a guarantee that it could even be average. There's almost a
Yeah.
guarantee that it's going to be tough, especially for the foreseeable future. If he were to take a
Mhm.
step, even there's contextual things the Raptors can do if they want to help him, and they should try a couple of those things because I think his offensive talent is quite large. But mostly, it's probably going to be a struggle for him to be an average or slightly below average defender this year. Would mean a significant change in the body, his ability to absorb contact, all those types of things. Foot speed, probably never getting around it, as you mentioned. We'll see. But all things considered, we're looking at two guards. You and I have kicked around this topic repeatedly. I I'll say where I think the Raptors organization is going with it first, and I don't think this will be surprising, but it's Grady's job first. And
Yeah.
Ochai kind of factors into these minutes as well to some degree. And I think from the top down view, organization wise, Grady's number one. Ochai and Jacoby occupy something similar, probably. The coaching staff, Darko, a guy messing up on defense or giving up stuff, you never like it. Maybe if I get to interview Darko that one on one for training camp, I'll ask him this: Who do you like best? But from my perspective, I think Gradey gets the longest shot at this and the longest leash. Do you feel similarly?
Yeah, I think so. Just because the ceiling is higher, if the defense does improve and he's able to stay in lineups, it puts significantly less pressure on their stars in being offensive creators. Just because they'll have guys that move defenses and offer help across the board. Like Jacoby is the option that you're slotting into your offense. If, like we mentioned, if Bi and Scotty can generate enough offense to create open shots for other people, Gradey is going to be a guy that helps create open shots for them. And I think the biggest thing for the Raptors this year is, are those two guys going to be the dudes that lead them to whatever heights that they want or get into the playoffs? So you need as much support as possible. And Gradey has a higher ceiling of doing that.
It's interesting because despite Grady playing more minutes, I think he represents change, whereas Jacoby represents probably more of the same.
Yeah.
And because it's interesting, the Raptors despite bringing their biggest change is that they bring in a guy like Brandon Ingram. You know, CMB is a big change too to some degree, but it's Ingram. They still probably won't profile as a strong offensive team. And if they do, the chances of Gradey factoring into that, I feel, would be quite massive. Whereas I think that they found out that they can cobble together with their scheme a decent place defensively. And of course, their best stretch was without Gradey, but they might be able to figure it out with a hodgepodge of guys. Whereas the offensive talent, they keep hitting a wall there. And Gradey can really help lift them over that. I'm still of the mind that it's Gradey as far as like not, and this is my thing. I'm riding with Gradey. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If Jacoby pops the hell off, trust me, we like Jacoby too.
Yeah.
We'll be very excited for that. But it's Gradey for me at the end of it. However, if Gradey plays well and Jacoby still leaps over him, I'm like over the moon. I'm losing my mind. I'm like, oh my God, Trey Savage and Ricky Tiedemann? Oh, perfect. I was gonna say, by the way, Blue Jays. We haven't talked Blue Jays in a while. They're gonna win the division, man.
Oh my! Every year of this pod, we've said, "I like the Jays this year. They're gonna win the division. I like them." This year they finally did it. Not in the way that we like. They're not bashing home runs, although they're still statistic wise
they score
towards
runs.
The top. Yeah, in runs scored, but they do it in they do in the Moneyball style, which does help it in the playoffs. And like, although the staff is a little shaky after Gosman, I think they have a chance to make the World Series just because their defense is that good and they'll save a run a game for their starters.
That team is so interesting. It is, we talk about a changing league and there being a bounce back effect. Like I noticed this too because I love looking at baseball stats. Just like mindlessly hanging out, go look at Baseball Reference or Baseball Savant or something like that. And you see like strikeouts, at least anecdotally, it seems like they're down. And it seems like when the league was really trending to the 3 true outcome, like it's a strikeout, it's a walk, or it's a home run, I believe are the 3 true outcomes, or a ball in play maybe, regardless. Everyone was like, Yasmani Grandal is the catcher for the Chicago White Sox in 2021, and his on-base percentage is like 420, and he hits home runs, but he can't hit for average. And now it seems like there's more guys who put the ball in play. There's more speedsters out there because they changed the size of the bases.
Yep.
They need better defense because there are more speedsters. It's like things flattened out. And some of that was at the behest of rule changes. But I think last year was the year we didn't say the Jays were going to be awesome. This year, we were just kind of like, listen, man, we'll see. I'm pretty sure we asked for Atkins to be fired. I'm certain I asked that. I don't know if I did on the podcast, but this was usually we tease at the end of the Raptors season, like hey, you guys want to pay us to talk about the Jays? There's no intention behind us saying that. We're just like, we want to be part of the conversation. But this year it's fun. This year it's fun. Are you going to go to, or I shouldn't say you, we're going to go to a playoff game, surely.
Yes. Well, 100%. I've never been to a playoff. We're probably going to be up there with Jesus, but I'm going to be there.
Well, also, another fun thing. There is Caitlin, as her sign-off, she bought a Mountain Dew and she was pleading with Mountain Dew to sponsor the podcast, by the way.
Yes.
We need a groundswell on that. We need people adding Mountain Dew every day. We need stands.
Yes.
I see other podcasters have stands, even regional podcasters. We need some of that motion, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Actually, no, I don't want it. I don't want it.
Mountain Dew. We've been trying to get with you guys for the past 3 years. I will do literally anything to be associated.
We're
your illustrious brand.
So that's like Jacques Vaughn. You know, when he was saying, like, when he finally got the head coaching job, he's like, "This is like my wife. You know, I had to ask so many times." That's us. If Mountain Dew said yes, oh, we'd be like, "Thank you." Oh, we do anything for you, Mountain Dew. Just keep that in mind. They probably feel like they're getting so much free press already,
Yeah.
though. We will withhold Mountain Dew, just so you
They
know.
probably have a regional manager like, for some reason we're doing so well in Toronto. Oh, shout out the promo.
Yeah, big shout out. Any thoughts before we get out of here?
It's been a whirlwind. The past like month or so, but we're getting
Thank God
back in.
for Kai holding it down, you know?
Yeah,
Just
honestly,
keeping you out of the red.
literally, I was on my phone. I'm like, man, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen at work? Such and such. But I've been. Last week was like the first time I actually worked in like 3 weeks, which is super super great, and we're back into the swing of things. So the Blue Jays to the World Series. I'm praying we get a Tigers Jays ALCS. Because if I don't know how much these Jays tickets are going to cost, but I know they'll be affordable in Detroit. So this could make a little trip.
We could get out to Detroit, man.
Yeah,
we could definitely get out to Detroit, and that's a great ballpark.
It is,
dude. And also to go to the hallowed ground where Pistons Jack threw out the first pitch. I mean, come on. That's a special place. Man, the Blue Jays need to get us in there for a first pitch. That's what this is also Mountain Dew and the Blue Jays.
Do you think you would throw a strike for the opening pitch?
A strike? I don't know if it'd be a strike, but I could throw a frozen rope. Like I can, like it's going to be in the catcher's arm. Like he'll be able to catch it without moving. Like his arm can go one way or the other. He won't have to stand up for it. But I'm gonna dot it. It's going there. I can throw.
You can throw a base. I think I could get it to the plate, but I think I'm gonna throw it high. I don't have the savage that arm angle. I was like, this looks like a dart just coming from all the way that high. But just
I don't know how his body is healthy, you know?
Yeah, because
like you start doing something, you start moving like this, you look like a damn creature, and suddenly stuff starts acting up. He's young, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm coming up on 30. It's close, man. The Grim Reaper of 30. It's coming up, but all right. I'll see you tomorrow for a little din and Goose and the fellas. I don't know if Nabil is he's hard to wrangle. I don't know if he'll be there.
He is. He's a busy man.
Yeah. When the world rests on your shoulders, what are you to do? Anyway, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in with us. You can like, comment, subscribe. It helps out the show. There's a lot more episodes coming. There'll be a lot of podcasts in September because I'm doing the outside looking in plus player previews and all that. But Trey and I, of course, talking still. Get excited for this season. This should be a good season. And if it's not, burn it down. But get excited. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, since we've done the pod, this will probably be the most exciting. I know they made the playoffs once since we've started potting.
Nope.
I thought not 2022. Oh, you're right. That was miserable. Never mind.
DR DeRozan, man.
Oh, yeah, that was the year before. So yeah.
We've never covered a playoff game.
Wow.
Do you think about this? The Raptors have been so bad that I moved to Toronto to cover this team. I've covered 0 Raptors playoff games. I have covered the finals for the Indiana Pacers in person.
That is crazy.
That's how bad this team has been.
Damn. I thought you were here for Scotty's rookie year. I guess not. Oh.
No. Oh. I wish. That would have been cool. But
brutal.
Obviously, you weren't keeping up with Lewis's writing at the time. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Whether you got into this in the morning or at night, from myself and from Trevon, have a blessed day and goodbye.